just get my mic in here. Oh, where's the other part of that? Okay, how is my sound? Oops. Sorry about that clattering, guys. Okay, I'm just gonna hook up my second monitor while we wait for some people to show up. It's always a moment while people start getting their notifications. Hello. Who do I have here? Can I get a sound check, please? While we wait for people to arrive. Retry. Okay. Still nobody. Okay. Because I am getting ads. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to take one little brief moment further, and then I will start painting. Hello, how is everyone? Hi, Mikey, how are you? How's my sound? Look. Sound is good from my end. Good. Trying to adjust my lighting. Turn on the sun. How's your week been, Mikey? Aha, so I could actually have them. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust my lamps to get you the best color here. And there's always just a little bit of adjustment to do. Well, my week has been interesting. My boy went back to school for the half week, but with the autism, he's completely confused. Oh, goodness. Schools just got canceled here. Ontario's doing really, really poorly. Our leadership is just a mess. So they delayed March break and they kept on saying, oh, no, the kids will go back to school. But now we're in full lockdown. So my week has been interesting. I've been pretty tired and foggy all week, so I haven't gotten much done, which you can probably tell with how little this has changed since last week. I did do some other stuff, but I did work on some other stuff, but I had meant to do more on this, and not that much has happened. I'm gonna take a look at some peach references. So what I've sort of been ignoring this problem, but I have slices of peaches. Obviously they have a depth, and so there's a skin, and so I've left a little bit of a space there to add the peach skin, but I need a reference for how to paint it. So this is where the internet comes in handy. And I am just using internet images of individual fruits because well, honestly, it won't matter that much. So I'm first putting down just what looks like an ugly gray bluish color, just to get some of that fuzz texture in, because this will be what shows up. Oh, no. This will be what shows up in the areas that don't have as much of the layer on top. And then I need to figure out where the next, because there's going to be several peaches. And I didn't really sort it out before starting. This is like composition, this is just yellow composition. Did you know I used to live in Ontario, Lee? Mississauga, precisely. Yes, I think you mentioned. Hi, Dan. How are you? So, as I was mentioning to Mikey, I'm sort of figuring out this composition as I go. There's a yellow aspect to this. I'm largely following the official Canada Food Guide, but they don't have things like peaches, and I think that Ontario peaches, for example, are really, really tasty. So I didn't want to just do that. So I am trying to paint in some of my favorite produce that grows in Canada. And so I'm adding in a bunch of elements. And the thing about adding in elements is that I could just obsessively draw everything before, but it didn't really seem necessary. Like, that's not how you would put together a plate, for example. So I'm just treating this as though I'm, organizing a fruit plate. And adding things as I go. Trying to get some of that really cool transition here. I think I may have overdone it a little. I wanted it quite vibrant. It feels like I overdid it just a little. I don't want to touch it too much, so I'm going to leave it there, and then I'm going to darken up just the very core in a moment. And then over here on the outside, I have an orangey red peel, but that's just going to be very muted. Draw some things in here. Drop some of that in there. So what's new with you, Dan? Been crazy, but I made it to the weekend. Canada looks amazing. I've been rewatching Kim's Convenience this week. You know, the Kim's Convenience store is a real store. Like, the actors weren't the real owners, but it was filmed in a real Toronto convenience store. And it really is true that all of the convenience stores in Toronto pretty much are owned by Korean families. And so the real Kim's Convenience just went up for sale this week. In case you were looking for a convenience store in Toronto to buy. Now, Dan, I will say I like living in Canada just fine. But just right now, you probably don't want to be in Ontario. Our government right now is really messing things up. We've got variant COVID strains all over the province. Our ICUs are at capacity. Doctors have received triage directives for who not to treat for the ICUs. We're in some kind of lockdown, but Ontario never really got the memo about what a lockdown is, so we're under stay-at-home orders supposedly, but all sorts of businesses are allowed and in fact kind of forced to stay open because there's no, they can't just arbitrarily close. Well, I mean, they could, but they won't get any support. Well, potentially maybe visiting Canada next year, probably not Ontario. Oh well. Yeah, it's really kind of scary right now, and we have ordered vaccines, but because we don't have our own production, we are, we've ordered 3 times as many vaccines as there are people in Canada, but we're kind of slow to get them and distribute them because we kind of have to wait for other countries where they're produced to ship them to us. And of course, they have their own people who they want to vaccinate as well. So vaccine rollout has been bad. Just all over, not great. Yeah, surprisingly, the UK are doing a good job. It makes a change. Well, yeah. The US kind of figured their stuff out since the election. So it's gone from earlier on in the pandemic, looking south of the border and just cringing. I'm like, oh, come on, please, keep this border closed, close it better. To almost the opposite. Not that I think that the border should be reopened. I think that the border should stay closed and that we should continue our stricter measures. But most of the US is actually doing better than, certainly than Ontario right now. We just really kind of messed it up. I do miss traveling quite a bit. I'm housebound whether we're in a pandemic or not. Yeah, traveling was nice. Probably won't be doing that for a while. Go last year, the UK and USA did a horrendous job, and they've both done a 360. My partner's 30th is this year, and mine is next year, so we'd like to do something to celebrate. Yes, that would be nice. Hopefully by next year, we will have turned around somewhat. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. I keep doing this. Hopefully I can pick that up real quick. Amber Wit Art says, how cool looking, I love your art. Thank you. Thanks, Amber. I just made a boo-boo. It's okay. It's really small and I can fix it up, but it's just annoying. Okay, I'm gonna zoom this out a little because it's kind of in my face. It's hard to navigate around all the lighting and stuff. Okay. I want to bring this out a little bit more. Out here. There we go. Then, where are I? And my finger. There we go. And then that just needs to dry for a bit. Welcome, Amber. How has your week been? Oh, I had tried to paint a heron this morning. I was massively impatient and didn't let anything dry enough, so there was one big boo-boo, but I'm gonna redo it tonight maybe. That's great, yeah. Boo-boos are normal. They happen, they're part of the process. Luckily, this yellow does lift a little bit, so I tried to pick up as much as I can, and then I have ways of dealing with that, so I'm just gonna ignore it for now, not make things worse. Doing well, how about you? I'm doing all right. It's been a weird week, weird few days, but yeah, no, pretty good. What yellow is this? Oh, this is Golden Yellow by Roman Schmal Aquarius. It's PY181, and it's beautiful. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. My new favorite yellow. It's not. I still have my old favorite yellow, but you know, for that warm yellow spot, the like PY153 that doesn't exist anymore, and you kind of make do with Hansa Yellow or something. It's that, but nicer. It's so good. Unfortunately, it's only available from Roman Schmal and only in full pans, so I can't put it in my main palette. Alas. I can't wait until Roman Schmals are back in stock at Jackson's. Almost all the ones I want are sold out. Schminka's on sale at Jackson's right now, which is cool. Oh, the custard eggy yellow. Sure, yeah. Okay. Now, wow, I've never tried Schminka. How's Neuron? Neuron is great. He has discovered a new favorite place to sleep. He switches it up every so often. So now he's found we have our outdoor cushions that we had left in the dining room. And he's discovered that he likes them, so he's got a pile of them and he sleeps on top of those right now. I think, oh, okay, yeah, you're missing a C, but you're pretty close with Schminka spelling. I am looking forward to Where were my thoughts going? I don't know. What am I looking forward to? Something. Being able to leave this house again ever. My sister has a almost 1-year-old. My little nephew, who I haven't gotten to know enough. And so she has a nanny. She's a public health nurse. If you were to suggest only one Schminke color, what would it be? Oh, that's an interesting question. So with most brands, I have a short list of a few paints that I really, really like from that brand. With Schminke, it's almost the opposite, where I like all of their paints. They're all pretty good, but I don't know that there's any one or two of them that are really unique necessarily that I need to have in my palette. I'm just thinking this through. Oh, I really like their Matter Brown. PR something. Oh, I have it written down. Do that. PR206. Matter Brown. So they're not the only company that carries it by any means, but I do really like it. Although it's not really an essential color in my palette. They make a really nice version of PY150, transparent yellow. It's not the one that I use most frequently, but it is really nice because it's less on the brown, warmer mass tone side. It's a very clear, transparent yellow, and it's not quite as overwhelming as some of the others. I kind of like the overwhelming look, so it's not essential to my palette, but it is a really nice version. Yeah, I mean, Schminke is really one of my favorite brands, but it's more like I could put together a Schminke palette out of all Schminke colors and I would be satisfied with it, where I can't say that about most other brands. With most other brands, even if I have a favorite color from them, it's like if I had to build a palette, you know, if I had to build a palette of only Winsor Newton, even though I really like Winsor Newton's transparent orange, I might be a little bit disappointed overall. Oh, I think the Schminke version of that's true. Schminke's Potter's Pink is really, really nice. So in fact, that's probably where they shine, is because they have such like good consistency across their line. It's any pigment that is likely to be a problem pigment in other brands is just not going to be a problem pigment with Schminke. So if the problem is like they don't have paints that are like way too overpowering, overwhelming, they don't have any binder issues, they don't have paints that dry rock hard. So if you really like Viridian, their Ultramarine Finest is very popular among botanical artists because it's very, very finely ground, so it won't separate out of washes. I also really like their Phthalo Blue Sapphire. I think it's called Phthalo Blue Sapphire. Or am I thinking of... Yeah. I think it's... trying to make sure that I'm actually talking about a Schminke paint here. Their Cobalt Teal, or maybe they call it Cobalt Turquoise. I'm not sure what they call it. Their Cobalt Teal tone is really nice. It's not my personal favorite, but it's right up there. Yeah, they have a, like, whereas most brands I feel have like 1 or 2 paints per, I think that's the best version of this pigment, or this spot, and then everything else is like, yeah, it's all right, or I don't really like that version. With Schminke, everything is in second place. I would be happy with any, like, you know, if you only gave me the Schminke version of every paint, because they don't have any bad ones, but they don't seem to be like the winner for very many things. I started with Shinhan, then shifted to Daniel Smith, so I don't have much experience with other companies. Okay, I don't have a huge amount of experience with Shinhan. I've only really tried a couple of their paints. I mean, I've done dot cards. I've swatched some dots of Shinhan, and I have a whole dot card coming, but I haven't really worked with their paints. Can't comment too much on that. Daniel Smith, I mean, it depends a little bit on your climate. I find they dry very, very hard. And they have this crazy variety, but the truth is you don't really need a crazy variety in your paintings, right? You only need a few paints. So they are good if you want to go into an art supply shop and you're looking for a specific color. Daniel Smith is really solid that way. And then they have some kind of unique things like the Primatex, which you just won't find paints like that elsewhere. So for those specific behaviors, but they do tend to be a little bit hard to re-wet. They just dry very hard. They don't have any kind of humectant in them. I don't have that issue with drying hard because I live in humid Florida. Gotcha. I live in Canada, so we're a humid climate, but in the winter it gets very cold, so then we're heating our indoor air, and so heated air is very, very dry. So everything dries like a rock in the winter. They're like Holbein paints. You're saying Schminke? I would avoid Sennelier or M. Graham if you're really moist. I mean, even honestly, Roman Schmal, be careful. Because I took some Roman Schmal. I took some Roman Schmal and an M. Graham Ultramarine into the rainforest when I went to Australia. And it made a mess. Shinhan are like Holbein. Oh, okay. Yeah. I like Holbein. I'll have to put in the freezer dehumidifier because I really want to try them. Yeah, no, absolutely try them. Just don't, I just wouldn't try to take them out in a travel palette. Like, it's fine that they don't dry up as long as you keep them face up, right? So they'll be fine to use in the studio, but you probably don't want to be carrying them around. It's interesting how climate dependent people's watercolor experiences are, but it really does matter. Hi, Lizzie. How are you? How's your week been? Actually, Amber, what you mentioned about the Schmincke Potter's Pink, the nice thing about it is a more, okay, I have the Schmincke version of Potter's Pink in my main palette, so I can swatch it for you. The Schmincke version of Potter's Pink, it's less pink than the, like it's more of a, you're right, duskier shade than say the Windsor Newton version. What it also is it's really, really nice and easy to re-wet. Because Potter's Pink is one of those difficult pigments that like really requires scrubbing usually. But the Schmincke version comes up really nice and saturated. And it's got really nice granulation. But it's like all Schmincke paints are just incredibly well behaved. So this is the Schmincke version of Potter's Pink, which I have in my main palette. And then I'm working from a Roman Schmal palette right now. Just a little portable palette. And I really like the Roman Schmal version too. Like the Schmincke version, it's really nice and easy to re-wet, but it's got that more pinky tone. So they're really, really nice. These are my two favorite versions of Potter's Pink from commercial brands for sure. And between which one, you know, 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, I like them both. But definitely I have Potter's Pink in every palette. I often actually get Potter's Pink from handmade paint makers where I can, because those tend to be really good too, but from commercial brands, these are definitely my two favorites. And yeah, so if I need to get it in tubes, because Roman Schmal doesn't come in tubes, that is a case where really Schmincke is my absolute favorite, and I do keep Potter's Pink in every palette, so there you go. That's a case where I absolutely do recommend Schmincke over anything else. Did that client decide to buy it? So I'm not sure if the original is sold or not. I'm doing this not really for the original. This is a personal project that I want to do for being able to send out postcards to editorial clients. So I have an acquaintance, a local nutritionist, food scientist, who suggested this. She's actually a distant relative of my husband's. And she had inquired about purchasing some artwork, which was really cool. And maybe she will at some point, and maybe it'll be this, or maybe it'll be something else. But then she suggested this as a subject. And I didn't negotiate with price or anything because I really just wanted to do it. And so I didn't want to be tied to her specifications or a timeline or a budget. I just wanted to do it. So I figured I'll do it, and then if she wants it, she can have it. I mean, buy it, not for free. But I haven't. I'll inquire once it's done. Yeah. Yeah, so for anyone who didn't catch this story last time, I'm painting the Canada Food Guide. And you can look it up online. In 2019, Canada released a new food guide, so this is like, you know, a guide to healthy eating or whatever. And in the past, we had something like a food pyramid, and then there was a weird road thing. And this is, like, honestly the best one yet. It just looks like a plate, and it's got half of it has fruits and vegetables on it. A quarter has proteins, both animal and non-animal proteins, and a quarter has grains. And the original one does seem to have a focus on mostly Canadian grown products. This one I'm working on exclusively things that we can grow in Canada that I really enjoy eating. So I've changed some of the stuff where they didn't have some of my favorites represented, so I wanted to add some things. And so I've switched out some of the choices in what the food choices are, but kept the same general concept where half of it is fruits and vegetables, and I'm also keeping like a similar ratio of fruits and vegetables shown. There will be proteins in one quadrant, and then grains in the last. The original painting also has a cup of water on the edge. I might do that as a separate painting. Yeah, I'm glad you guys like the Potter's Pink. Yes, Potter's Pink I find is really nice for texturing down areas. So for example, with like where you want like a sort of a dusty texture for things. So one place where I am using Potter's Pink, for example, I'll actually get that done right now, is I'm mixing Potter's Pink over here on the edge with a tiny bit of my transparent orange. These are both the Roman Schmall version, and maybe a little bit of a red, a little bit more of the Potter's Pink, to try to get a color that'll granulate out, and so make some nice, like almost fuzzy looking patterns for this peach skin as the Potter's Pink granulates out. So I'll just use a little bit of that in here, and you can see I'm just sort of running that over and in here and there. And we can just run that all the way over through here. And then the potter's pink will granulate out and it'll just create just a little bit of texture there so that it looks soft and fuzzy. But yeah, I just want to be clear here, like there isn't a client with this painting. There's a potential client who spoke to me about the painting. I don't want to promise it to someone else or whatever. This was an idea. I mean, people throw ideas at me all the time. That doesn't mean that they're going to buy the finished product. And most of the time I just nod politely and say, yes, that sounds very nice, because I don't have all the time in the world to paint everyone's ideas, unless they're paying me. And even then, sometimes it's like, well, that's a really cool idea, but I'm maybe not the artist to do it. In this case, it really solved a problem that I was looking to solve for a personal project, where I want to send out postcards to art directors, to editorial clients. I really like doing editorial publishing work. The really short timelines work for me. Not everyone gets along with them, but I have trouble with like long-term scheduling big projects long term. I end up doing a lot of work last minute anyway. And then just when I have a shorter deadline, I actually work better. And so I would like to do more editorial work. Often it's really, really cool projects. Often it's really, really nice. So I wanted a piece that was bright and colorful that would really present well on a postcard. That had a really clear narrative aspect to it, like illustrations often tell part of the story in an article in a magazine or something, but I didn't want it to depend on text interweaved. Like I didn't want it to, I wanted it to be understandable on its own, because the only text I want on there is my name and stuff. And so I had all sorts of ideas for what I could do for that, but none of them were really quite right. And this is, I feel like, a really good project for that, because it's very bright, it's very colorful, it's very understandable whether you've seen, especially if you've seen the Canada Food Guide before, it's recognizable instantly as, oh, this is the Canada Food Guide. But even if you've never seen the Canada Food Guide, even if you're not Canadian, it's really understandable as oh, this is a story about what you should eat, for example. So you don't really need to have text accompanying it for it to be understandable. It's also very, very colorful. There's a range of shapes and textures, so, it shows my range. So it's just a really good personal project. So I want to do it. If I can sell the original, all the better, but no guarantees on that. We didn't discuss price. For this, we discussed prices for other artwork. But yeah, like I have no guarantee that this is being sold. And I'm completely okay if it doesn't. Hi, Stephen, how are you? Thank you for the clarifications. May I ask which other ideas did you have that weren't quite right? So I've done some work with like illustrations of birds in like birds building nests with human discarded materials. And so I've got a series of those in the works. One of them's done, one of them's partway done, and a whole bunch are just ideas. That's kind of on hold because I can't visit the ornithology department where I would get some of my references. So can't really work on that right now anyway, but my concern with that was both it's not super colorful and also it does require a little bit of explanation. Like, you know, it tells a story, but without having either the full set of them or an explanation saying, oh, this is, you know, that piece of plastic ribbon, that's part of the story. You know, they don't really, I don't know, I feel like there's a little bit missing when you just see the image. So that was one thought. I also I'm working on some, I'm sure that everyone is familiar with the link between monarch butterflies and milkweed. That's a very common example given for, you know, a dependent, like a dependent relationship where if you're concerned about monarch butterflies, you need to plant milkweed. And specifically, you need to plant certain kinds of milkweed in certain places because they depend on it as a larval host. So I wanted to do some paintings of host plants for less known pollinators. Like everyone's familiar with the monarch butterfly and milkweed, but that's actually not the most threatened link there. So for example, the Carner blue butterfly is considered extirpated in Canada. So it is native to the area that I live in and parts of the US, but it depends on a specific kind of lupin. And lupins are common, so people think, oh, it's not an issue. But the problem is it's dependent on a sundial lupin, which is a native kind of lupin that's specific to this area. And it doesn't, the Carner blue butterflies don't recognize lupins if they're a hybrid lupin with a different kind of lupin. So most of the lupins that we see grown in gardens here are Russell lupins. They're from the West Coast. And not only that, but they bring in Russell lupins and those hybridize, like the pollen mixes with the local lupins. So the Russell lupins come in more colors. They have like a fuller habit. They have more, like their flowers are fuller. So people plant those for their gardens, but then they mix with the native sundial lupins, and then the Carner blue butterflies don't recognize them and can't use them as a larval host. So, as a result, the Carner blue butterfly is critically threatened across its range and considered extinct in Canada. Extirpated. So, you know, that's a cool story. But if I just send, and I probably will, because I don't think that it's only going to be like I'm only going to send one image to publishers by any means. And I think that different publishers will want different things. So this is more of a food illustration. Might also want to send to like Nature magazine, send something else. But my issue, again, with something like the pollinator series or the, you know, the host plant series is if I send a postcard that has a picture of a lupin and a blue butterfly on it, that has a meaning. Like there's a story there about this being a specific kind of blue butterfly that's specifically dependent on this kind of lupin, and they're both rare. But you don't see that when you see an image of a blue butterfly and a lupin. You need that extra word context. So yeah, it's tough, where even if you're telling a story with an image, often you need some text to provide some context for what story you're telling. Anyway, if anyone has some other examples, some other thoughts, yeah, happy to hear them, happy to hear suggestions. But wow, now I feel so worried about the butterflies. There's so many like this. There are so many like this, and the more you look at it, it's like it's pretty concerning. With like, you know, certain kinds of swallowtails need certain kinds of pipevine. You know, it's not just butterflies either. Butterflies are popular because butterflies are pretty. But yeah, there's a lot of these like very narrowly like interdependent relationships. People talk about saving the bees, but people don't really understand what bees need saving. Where people think of, oh, we're going to save the bees, but they picture a European honeybee, or maybe a bumblebee. But they think, oh, okay, so I need to have hives, and I need to plant whatever, and I need to have dandelions. Like, none of those things are true. It's not, honeybees are not endangered. It's native bees that are endangered. There's hundreds of species of them. A lot of them have like very specific requirements. Yeah. This is one of the best lessons on storytelling images I've heard. Oh, okay. Thank you. May I ask what you thought was effective, I guess? My manager has me writing a book, so, you know, I'm taking notes here on what people want to hear. How did they, well, I personally, okay. So just the example of like how an image can tell a story, and like what kind of images are more effective at telling stories, and what you might need for them. Please compliment me. This feels so ridiculous. Oh, interesting. Huh. So apparently I can just click on y'all and make you a moderator from this interface. I didn't know I could do that. That's pretty cool. Like if I... So having you tell how the story works and the example images of the story to make it work, that sort of made something click. That's really cool. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes people ask questions that's like, it's hard to tell, you know, or remember or contextualize what are things that need to be told, what are things that need to be taught. Sometimes it's one of those like you learn by doing things where I mentioned this in the previous peach, but a bunch of you weren't here. I am painting in first like a bluish, grayish tone across the skin of the peach, and then I'll add orangey, purpley, pink tones afterwards on top. And I'm doing it all in these sort of granulating colors so that it'll create a kind of a fuzzy, like without actually painting white fuzz on it, create the look of that white fuzz that you get on peaches. Hi Alex, how are you? And I think I missed Paulo coming in earlier. Hi Paulo. Okay, so then what else do I need in this image? Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna quickly run to my notebook and take some notes. For book reasons. Book notes. Stand versus complementing words. Examples. Okay, cool. Thanks, Luzini. Anyway, hopefully I'll make this more of a regular thing where I'll be sending out postcards maybe once a year or so, a couple times a year. So if you all have ideas either now or you come up with ideas of sort of like images that have a story that are nice and colorful. Absolutely no guarantees that I will use your idea. I might just nod politely. Like realistically, it's just a matter of time, right? So it doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. It just means that maybe it's not right for me at this time. No guarantees that I'll use them. But I always like hearing them regardless. So. Maya just showed up. Have to go, guys. Bye, Mikey. Did you practice any with Casey? So, Stephen, you'll be happy to know that this weekend I'm starting a gouache course, specifically to work with opaque medium, and I will absolutely be working with casein this weekend. Casein and gouache. I'm looking forward to doing some of the James Gurney's type exercises where I paint a background in casein and then paint over with watercolor, or not watercolor, with gouache. This week has been a bit of a bust in terms of getting much work done of any kind, unfortunately. I wrote a blog post. I still have to click publish on it. I realized yesterday that I walked away without actually publishing. Yep, whoops. And I have to send out my little Patreon update, which I also wrote but didn't publish. I got a lot of things like halfway done. Quiller says it's when you get to 2 to 3 foot area, 2 by 3 foot areas and want to that flat look, it's casein. That makes sense. It does really go down quite nice and flat. Hashtag relatable. The 2 by 3 foot areas, or like not getting anything done? Getting everything done halfway. Can't wait to see more Patreon. Yes. Yes. You all need so many Patreon updates. Indeed. Yes. Yep, that's written. They'll publish that right after this. I just didn't want to be looking over it right before. I realized literally right before I went live that like, oh shoot, I did these 2 things yesterday, and then I wandered off and didn't actually publish either of them. I might finish my whiteboards this weekend. Getting things half done is relatable. Yeah. It happens. I've got Joy to keep me on track now, so we're good. All right, and now I can do the edge of this. This lovely stuff. I'm so happy you are live streaming right now. Work is killing me and you're helping me push through it. Okay, well, I'm glad that I'm helpful. I live stream every Friday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So right when you came into this stream, pretty much. I think you were here pretty close to the beginning. So you can set yourself an alarm and I can help you through every Friday afternoon. I also do monthly streams on Patreon starting this month on Sundays, I think is what we decided, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so that's for patrons, obviously, but if you want to look into that, the link is in the description. But no worries, I will still be, don't feel pressured, anyone. That's, if you want to support me and can afford it, that absolutely super duper helps. But I'm trying to keep as much of my content free as possible. I realize that not everyone is in a position to contribute financially. These streams are completely free and go every week. Go. Anyway, yeah, this week was a little slow. I think I'm still, well, I have some unknown chronic autoimmune something. And I've been trying to get my spring garden started with moderate success, but it's just wiping me out every time I try to haul some dirt to the garden or anything like that. It's been tough. What are your guys' thoughts on streams like this, where I have like an actual, like a project that I do finish in one shot in a stream versus this that I've been doing the past couple weeks where I'm just working on something that sorry, like this is a project that's going to go on and I'm going to work on it on stream, off stream. But it's I guess a real illustration. Do you guys have preferences with that going forward? Stuff you'd like to see? You mean an 8-hour stream? I am absolutely never doing an 8-hour stream. I've done 4-hour streams and those are kind of killer. Like 2 to 3 hours is good. Manageable. "24 hours with a month or something, take shifts." Well, I mean, we've done things in the past where like Ev streamed for a couple hours and then passed it off to me. Like I did a couple of special Saturday streams. To be honest, I feel like I should probably keep to just Fridays. I have a tendency to take on more than I can really handle. So it's probably best for me to just keep doing one thing consistently. But it's at least possible to imagine, yeah, something where you had like multiple people. I know that Dan and Cyan, I have their channel links in the video description here. They both stream on Sundays. To be honest, I often don't catch those streams, but for those of you who are enjoying this stream format, there's a number of people, other watercolor artists, who stream throughout the weekend. So Ev Bolt streams on her stream channel, not on her main channel. So there's a link to that. She streams on Saturdays. And then Dan from Pinholder Art and Cyan and Cyan Ink Art both stream on Sundays. So Payne says, super late, but happy Friday all. Hope everyone is well. No worries. I'll probably still be going for a while. Paulette says people on Twitch do 24-hour streams and even more, but they do stream while they sleep. I mean, I guess I don't really see the point of that. Like, you're not gonna watch me sleep. Sorry. Yeah. I feel like there needs to be some like work-life division, you know? It's tough when you live your life on the internet where everything can become content. Where, you know, I make art for a living, but if I sketch something in my sketchbook, you know, that's also just what I do for fun. So is that content? If I go out and garden, that's related to botanical art. Is me gardening content? I renovate my house. People are interested in seeing that. Is that content? You know, everyone likes my cat. Is my cat content? You can very quickly get to where you're just doing everything on camera and for the camera. And so I try to be aware of like, no, the camera turns off. You don't get to see everything in my life. You only get to see a section of my life. Separation of work and play, thank you. Yeah, exactly. And you know, some of it is like it's bound to mix up a little bit where yes, people are interested in the same things as me, and like you get to know your audience, and I know all of you, and I want to share that stuff with you, and so I feel like maybe, you know, there's a little bit of that that's going to spill into Patreon, for example. But in general, I do try to keep a lot of my life not on YouTube, and not on Instagram. You know, there's not personal photos. You don't get to see everywhere I go and what I do every hour of the day. Yeah, I mean, it's tempting, but I also know that it's very destructive and people really burn out that way. So trying to be conscious of. Try not to post too many personal stuff, or I put them in stories for friends only. Right. Yeah. But it's tough because, like, you know, I know that I enjoy seeing, like, you get this feeling of connection, and I enjoy seeing life updates to some extent. I mean, I'm not really, like, I don't watch lifestyle bloggers, but I do enjoy seeing, you know, some view of how other people run their lives and their businesses, and especially creators who I've connected to, who I consider friends, like Dan. You know, I'm super curious to see, oh yeah, you moved, like, love to see your new house. But I also know that from a personal standpoint, that can lead to, like, then you can never leave work. Like, there needs to be, and especially with a pandemic, like, I'm not going to a separate studio. It really is like, this is my house, this is my life. No, like, I can't live my life for the internet. So you'll see I'm sort of jumping around this painting. Part of it is because things need to dry before I touch them again. And part of it is as I go through, I can start seeing what's popping out as like it doesn't quite fit. Also, just stalkers exist and just everything in that particular bucket of nightmares. Yeah, nothing wrong. Some YouTubers have had some weird things happen. Oh, speaking of weird things happening. So I live in a kind of sketchy neighborhood. I say this and at the same time, like I feel kind of ridiculous about this because I grew up in, you know, a part of Toronto that had a bit of a bad rap and it's really not a big deal. And we have a very nice house and we have very nice neighbors. But I live in kind of a sketchy neighborhood and weird things do happen because there's kind of a drug problem in the area. So we thought we'd had the weirdest theft ever when somebody stole our garden hose a couple years ago. Like just stole our garden hose off the side of our house. It wasn't a new garden hose. It wasn't like, it came with the house. When we bought the house, there was a garden hose attached. It was probably a decade old. It wasn't particularly unique or good in any way. It was just a garden hose. Somebody stole a garden hose off the side of our house. We thought that was the weirdest theft. This year, I had a weirder theft. Somebody stole 2 bunches of chives, like clumps, out of my garden. Like, I don't really have a backyard. I just have like a driveway and then a tiny little area, but it's visible from the street. So somebody walked up my driveway, stepped in my perennial bed, dug out 2 clumps of chives sometime over the course of the winter, like from fall to recently, and walked off with them. Chives are usually the first thing to come up in spring, so I was really surprised when like everything else was reviving and there were no chives, and I went and dug around and there's like not a trace, no roots, no nothing. It's not that some animal ate them. They're gone. 2 whole big established several-year-old clumps of chives just gone. What the hell? Who steals chives? And a garden hose. I swear it's like, is this like one of my friends playing some like weird mind trick on me? Like, friends. I don't know anyone that crazy, but isn't it? I have my original account for my family and friends and then the art stuff. And recently my family started to filter in and it's great and it's scary. Yeah, I do have to watch out for that direction of spill too. Where like, I mean, there's obviously going to be overlap where, you know, your first customers when you do illustration are always going to be friends and friends of friends and family friends. And at this point, yes, I mean, I get a lot of commissions from people who I've never met before, but certainly that was not the case for the first several years. You live somewhere weird, like maybe Mars, that's crazy. It's bizarre. It's so strange. Like, it's not, the thing is, you know, this is Canada. Our shed, well, now we have a lock on it, but for a long time we didn't even have a lock on our shed. And I had like expensive bikes in there. Nobody steals them. Nobody, like, I have in my front yard, I have plants that I have out in containers that someone could walk off with, and it's never happened. Like, it's not actually dangerous at all. But I've had like, who steals a garden hose? Who steals chives? We had someone steal a huge chunk of our rosemary bush out front, and when we moved in, we would regularly find people charging their phone in from the port and the driveway. Yeah, so like charging their phone from the port in the driveway sounds like something that I would find. We have. Okay, so we live on like a smaller side street. It's a one-way street, but it comes in at an angle from a main street. And so the reason we don't really have a backyard is because we're pretty close to that point there. So like we're only a few doors down. And so there's our house and we don't really have a backyard, and then there's another house that doesn't really have much of a backyard either. And on our street, you know, it's a side street, it's quieter. We generally have some really nice neighbors. But on the main street, I mean, people who live I mean, generally main streets are less gentrified, shall we say. So there's a couple houses in there that are like really low-end rentals and have some drug problems. And so the one beside my neighbor's house, or like behind my neighbor's house in particular, I mean, he believes it's just like a crack house. And certainly there's like some people will walk up our driveway, climb over my planters, and then walk. There's this like weird no man's land between our property and the neighbor's property, and we get people walking through there to get to their property on the main street because, I don't know, because they're paranoid or because the cops are actually watching them. Either way, they use this as this little junky highway. Anyway, so like there's been a few times where I'm out gardening and someone just like shows up, like about to walk down my driveway, and like, hi, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? I live here. What are you doing here? Yeah, it's a little bizarre. It's a little strange. But it's also like, the fact of the matter is it's all pretty harmless too. Like, it's not that there are really serious vandalism or theft or whatever issues. It's just like really bizarre stuff, like garden hoses and apparently chive clumps, which is just annoying because now I have to go get another thing of chives. Like, those were some big clumps too. I like a new and I could have started them over the winter, but I didn't realize until they didn't come up in the spring. So our backyard is surrounded by the neighbor's gardens, so the only way in is through our house. I work at home a lot and let the dog out, and the repair dude for next door had removed a fence post and plugged in his power tools to our shed. That's weird. Do you like living where you are? I generally like living where I am. This isn't going to be a forever home, for sure. It's full of stairs. And we don't have a main floor washroom, so like aging in place could be a bit of a challenge. And also in terms of some of our hobbies, it's pretty clear that it's limiting. I've gotten really into gardening, and we don't have a backyard. We have a very shady front yard. I've put up planters in our driveway, and I have a community garden, but like, you know, I'm sort of at the limit of what I can do gardening wise on this property. Also, my husband's gotten into woodworking, and right now he's woodworking in our carpeted basement. So that's like really awkward to get to. So like carrying wood down there is not super great. He did not get why I was flipping out. The whole panel gone and cords across all my plants. I mean, that's so annoying too, because like if you need a cord, can you not go knock on someone's door and ask like, oh, can I pass over a cord? Like, it's fine. Renovations are awkward. Sometimes you need to shut off the water and use the neighbor's toilet. Like, it's okay, but knock on their door. Don't break into their house. Like when we redid our kitchen, there was a day where we didn't have plumbing, and yes, I did go knock on the neighbor's door and ask if I could use their toilet, and yes, it was like the neighbor's daughter who I'd never met, who looked at me kind of weird, but like I wouldn't just like go, like, yes, their door was open, but like I wouldn't just go and like walk in. You know? Ah. No, I'm not cutting the trees in front. It's not okay to break into someone's home? Is this a new thing? When we, our last apartment we had, it was a house that was sort of similar to this one, but we had the upstairs, and you know, some friends of ours were renting the downstairs. They were separate units though, like they weren't connected in any way. But the front door just led to a staircase up into our apartment, and sometimes we'd leave it unlocked and we'd get people who would come in for deliveries, either to us or to one of the neighbors, like one of the housemates, and they just walk in the front door and up the stairs. Like, where do I go for this? Like, have you considered knocking? Is that a thought that occurred to you, or no, just like open the door and walk in? Animal Crossing, okay. When we first moved in here, we had, oh god, I'm gonna make it sound like I really live somewhere super sketchy. It's really not that bad. But when we first moved in, we had someone wander into our mudroom night and they were high on something. My husband wandered down, like heard the crashing around in the mudroom, like comes down, like, excuse me, can I help you? And the guy's like, I'm looking for the door. Like, it's right there, and he points at it, like, oh, there's so many doors, I'm so cold, whatever, like, crazy guy. Please leave. Get out of my house. Okay, next, let's do the last of Okay, that's interesting. Not really sure what I'm doing with that. I should probably have some kind of something there though. So there are so many doors. Yeah, there's two. One into our house and one out. Like, it's that one. Please leave. Yeah, I mean, I found it kind of funny, but I wasn't there. Well, my husband was kind of freaked out. Talking about the next time I'm coming out with a baseball bat. Like, oh, please don't. Well, he only got into the mudroom because there's no door, like there's no lock from outside into that mudroom. So like we'll sometimes get deliveries into there and whatever. It doesn't actually connect into our house proper. Although, you know, there is a sort of like, why, you know, when people just step into it, like, why? Surrounded by doors, yeah. Yep. It's honestly like you know, I tell these stories and like, whoa, where do you live? But it's not that sketchy. This is what a $500,000 house in Canada gets you. What? Our real estate market is in a bubble? What? see some crazy expensive houses in my town and think, who would pay that? Yeah, it's a nice house, but in this town, it's the equivalent of rolling a turd in glitter. Yeah, but see, like, it's not like there are. This is probably the cheapest town in a, like, if you're talking actual cities, actual towns, this is the cheapest one that you're going to find anywhere in southern Ontario. Well, no, sorry, Windsor's cheaper. But like we're it's not like oh, I could move to the next town over and it would be cheaper. No, it would be more expensive. I couldn't move. You know, and it's not like we have some crazy fancy house either. Like, this is the cheapest, not the cheapest, but this is below the median house price in this city. Well below, yeah. Windsor for us is super expensive. Yeah, Windsor is like the cheapest city in Ontario, like south of Timmins. Like, unless you're talking like really, really far north on northern Ontario, Windsor is the cheapest one. By far. By far. And it's just because it's across the bridge from Detroit. Because everything else around is much, much, much more expensive. I work next to Windsor. It would be so good for commute, but our 3-bedroom house with a driveway and garden would get us something of a 1-bedroom flat. Is Windsor a bad place in Canada? No. Windsor is, okay, so Windsor and Detroit are, so Windsor is in Canada, Detroit is in the US, but they are like just across the border from each other. They're sister cities. And so they both had like strong manufacturing and auto industries that completely collapsed. So they both like got really, really cheap and really, really run down. Detroit more so, Canada pumped some money into Windsor to keep it more afloat and not turn really sketchy. But it's like, otherwise it's fine. It's just, if anything, there's not a whole lot of industry because the auto industry collapsed, so there's lots of this thing below the peach corn. Yeah, this is gonna need a lot of work and I'm not gonna do that on camera. That's gonna be a little panic inducing, so. So yeah, so like Windsor's probably just about the cheapest that you're gonna find. It's cheaper than Sarnia. I thought that. Yep. And we're back. All right. Any day now. This will catch up. Okay. You. No, nope, not that one. Come back. Woo woo. Sorry. Yeah, our internet died. But it's back now. Fixed. Yay! Yeah, there are unfinished bits hiding under the wax paper, but it's also there to protect this painting against my clumsy self. Really like the blue on my palette. Which blue on my palette? This blue on my palette? It's beautiful. It is. It's a mix of things, actually. But it's mainly Cobalt Sea Blue from Roman Schmal Aquarius. And let me just get you Joy! Yay! Welcome. How are you? How's your vacation been? I'm really glad to see you. I've missed you. Yeah, so this is Cobalt Sea Blue from Roman Schmal Aquarius, and it's really, really pretty. This is like my favorite cobalt teal-ish shade. And then I've also got, what else have I got here? There's also some other cobalt in there. So this is their regular, like their cobalt blue dark, I believe. Yeah. It's wedding day. I'm so excited for my friends. That's awesome. That's great. I'm so happy for you and slightly jealous that you get to do things like go to weddings. Because that's not a thing here. Here I'm locked into my house. I mean, sort of. Like, they say it's a lockdown and that we're under stay-home orders, but then, like, everything is open, so... Some real interesting definitions of stay home. And lockdown. Ontario's been kind of crappy. Sorry, yes, we were talking about crazy house prices in Canada. House prices in Canada are insane. When I say $500,000, I mean, keep in mind this is Canadian dollars, so maybe it would only be, but also it would be like 550, so maybe it would only be like 450 in the States, if you're talking American dollars. But also just houses are just insanely, like, real estate is just insanely inflated in Canada in general and Southern Ontario in particular. Toronto is really, 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 really crazy. Where, like, you're not getting anything under $1 million in Toronto proper, and like under $1 million, you know, if you're talking $1 million home in Toronto, it's not $1 million home. It's like a piece of land with half a shack on it. I tell the story all the time, but my Spanish friend wrote, "I hope today's the least happy day of your life." In our car, it took me a hot minute to realize how sweet it was. That is sweet, but yes. It's been a good long while, but Ottawa was really pricey when I tried to escape the US the first time. Yeah, and like even Ottawa, you know, when we look at the Ottawa region, like it is, Ottawa proper would be about as expensive as here. But if we were looking at like the Ottawa Valley, that is way, way cheaper than like any of the more rural areas further south. Mom and Dad's house is about, oh, it's over 2 million. Yeah, yeah. There's just no way that, like I talk about, you know, when I moved, I grew up in downtown Toronto. Lauren's my brother, in case anyone's confused about that. But I grew up in downtown Toronto, and like very, very urban, and really didn't want to move. I'm in Kitchener now, which is a smaller city. It's still a city. But like as with a lot of smaller North American cities, it's pretty car dependent. It's not like, it doesn't have as much of a downtown core or as much, you know, life to it. So in Rosedale, it's about around 100 million. I don't know about around 100 million, but certainly like you're not getting anything in Rosedale for under 3 or 4 million. It has the best bus system I've ever used in my life. Ottawa highways only for buses. Blew my mind. Oh boy. Okay, well now I'm getting some context about why you think Canadian, like now I'm putting this, recontextualizing this, because wow. I would not call Ottawa transit system particularly stellar at all. But yes, I do like the dedicated bus lanes. Anyway, yeah. I've looked at Ottawa as an option for, anyway, it's a bit troublesome. Mostly it's Toronto has a really, really big housing bubble, and it spreads out for like a couple 100 kilometers in every direction around Toronto. I'm from a place in Texas, 1 bus an hour, and then 7 transfers later, you were halfway there and standing in 45 degrees. Okay, yeah, Canadian transit isn't great, but it's better, I guess. Toronto is doing an amazing job for cyclists and TTC slowly. I mean, good, it's like way overdue, where the TTC has sort of been degrading for a really long time. We got 20 miles in as many minutes. I was blown away. Well, come up to Kitchener, you know, once it's safe and the border reopens, but come visit me in Kitchener. We've got an actual LRT now. Whew, it's great. You know, 1 line, but you can just ride it back and forth. So expensive. Just looked it up. About 700,000 Canadian in pounds is about 400 pounds. Yeah. I will say the UK is really good, but London is a nightmare if you don't know where you are going on public transport. I'm gonna visit you when the lockdown restrictions lift. And U2 has Wi-Fi? What? Oh, the transit, like Grand River Transit has Wi-Fi. Yes, Grand River Transit does have Wi-Fi. When the lockdown is lifted, then you can visit me. Any news from Birdie, Lauren? Our sister has a son, our little nephew, and she might be losing her nanny, but she's a public health nurse, so she has to sort something out. So I don't know, maybe one of us siblings is gonna have to go there and take care of little buddy, and whoever it is. The rest of us, I'm sure, will be very jealous. The maps are squished and no one told me, so I was using it to judge distance. Bad move. Yeah, the Toronto maps are squished too. And the maps in Kitchener-Waterloo are all like, they've made it into straight lines, but actually our roads are all like, our roads look like they're just a scribble drawn by my nephew. You want the job. But Lauren, you have a job, and like you quitting your job to go take care of Birdie's kid is a bit of an issue. Because then what happens when that's over if you can't find another job? The average house price in my town is 250,000 to 300,000 pounds. It was worth noting that wages are lower in the UK. Yeah, so the average house price in Kitchener-Waterloo is north of 600,000 Canadian dollars. So that's just a little bit more than where you are. New Zealand house prices in cities are crazy also. It's a big political issue currently. Not too many right-angled intersections in Kitchener-Waterloo. No, a lot of very curly streets. You can have a King Street north, east, south, and west. There are 3 different intersections of King and Weaver. You just want the baby. I mean, to be honest, I think that Misha might be the best fit if Misha was willing to go there for an extended period. Because I have stuff going on at home too. Like, I'll do it if it doesn't work for Misha. I think that Misha would probably be the best fit, to be honest. Sorry, my brother and I are having a discussion about which of us should take care of our sister's child, which isn't up to us anyway. King Street east, west, north, and south, and it doesn't really do any of them. I think that it would be best if Misha did it, Lauren. Because if Misha can work that, because Misha only has a few hours of class every week. Bye, Lauren. Enjoy work. bloom on that peach is amazing. Thank you. There's a ring road in Dallas that does that every direction things, and I don't understand why it's not just clockwise and counter anti-clockwise. Right, except that the problem is that, okay, so a ring road makes sense to me, right? A ring road is shaped like so. So if you have a ring road, you have a circle, right? And you have north, east, south, and west. Odd thing, I think peaches and blueberries look so pretty beside each other. The colors complement the colors play so well. Oh, thank you. Anyway, the problem with King Street is that King Street's directions go like this. You have a north that goes sort of like this, and then you have a west that goes like this, and then you have a south that goes like this. I'm not even sure that I've got them. And then you have an east or something like this. And you say, well, this is north, this is west, this is south, and this is east. And then you have Weber that like crosses over like this or something. And so if you look at our streets, what's actually happened is that there's two different towns. There's Waterloo. No, but right idea. Yeah, I think I've got west and east in the wrong place. I've stopped trying to keep track. So here you've got Waterloo and Kitchener, and they each had sort of radial roads that radiated out in whatever direction, and then they connected them sort of strangely, and then connected other weird things like this. So what you have is a road system that looks like it's designed by like, here's your road system. Great, drive around that. I live right on the border, no fences or anything. Yeah. I'm pretty close to the border as well. Okay, let's get some more blueberries in here, I guess. I'm painting little wild blueberries, which are much better than regular blueberries. Thank you very much. Google Magic Roundabout UK, that's a crazy system. That's Sounds crazy. We've got roundabouts all over this town too. It's like the hot new thing. Anything that we can turn into a roundabout, let's turn into a roundabout. Not sure about this. The magic roundabout is about 5 roundabouts around a 6th big one. Oh no, 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 no. That sounds terrible. I hate it. I hate it. Dan, that's wild and bad. Like, not in, oh no, 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 no. No, I'm having nightmares. We have so many roundabouts here. And every time they redo a road, they're like, you know, we could put in roundabouts. You know what everyone hates? Roundabouts. We have back-to-back ones too. Who's up for figure 8? Yep, we have this row of like this section that's all just like roundabout, and little section of road roundabout, little section of road roundabout. Just ignore the middle roundabout and take one at a time. It makes it easier. I don't like it. Need to go as well, guys. Okay, bye, Lucy, and thanks for joining us. Hi, Hector. News for me. Twitter says Ontario extends stay-at-home order, introduces new COVID-19 restrictions. Who wants to hear what new restrictions I'm under? I do. Let's see. What does Twitter have to tell me? On Friday, Premier Doug Ford announced that the province is extending the state of emergency and stay-at-home order by an additional 2 weeks. He also announced a series of new restrictions. Outdoor gatherings limited to individual households only. Oh, good. Limiting non-essential travel between provinces. Closing golf courses and playgrounds. Reducing capacity at retail stores and places of worship, and shuttering non-essential construction. Also, police in Ontario can now stop and ask anyone on the street or in cars as to why they are not at home and ask for their address. There's still no help for essential workers. They're still struggling to define what essential work even is. Yeah. Okay, well, so, you know, that's what's going on in my life. I mean, to be honest, it's just not strong enough. Like, Ontario never had a lockdown like parts of Europe. We've always had these like sort of half measures where they say it's a lockdown, but everything is still open. The community garden will still be open with the existing limited capacity. The community garden was open. They took a while to figure it out, but it's considered essential because it provides food and outdoor exercise. Like, we don't have enough vaccine supply, so we need to stamp out variants through transmission. And like, we know how to do that. Lots of countries have done it. New Zealand did it. Let's see what New Zealand did. Joy can tell you about what their lockdown initially looked like, but it was a lot stricter than what we're seeing. We have a lot of these half measures in Ontario where like things aren't really closed. They say we're under stay-at-home orders and it's a state of emergency, but like houseplant stores can be open because why? Any small business can remain open for curbside pickup. So you've got people walking around, standing in lines. Like, their definition of what is essential is very, very broad. Yeah. I don't know, we are handling it very differently down here across the continent. Well, right. So at the beginning of the pandemic, like last year, we were looking down to, Florida and seeing like your crazy ICUs getting overfilled and feeling pretty smug about, oh, well, we had a lockdown and we don't have cases. But the problem is that we never really had a full lockdown. And then when case counts started going down, Canada provided some support at the federal level, but left it up to the provinces to decide their own restrictions. And our premier here in Ontario is sort of like a little like Trump Jr. And he started out all right, but he just like, he's clearly tired of restrictions and he's like, oh, just do whatever. Yeah, and stay home, don't stay home. They change their mind every like 3 days. And so instead of it being a strict lockdown, but it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks, we've been under some kind of lockdown for most of the past year, where we've never had a very, very strict lockdown, but it's always been, okay, everything, oh, well, you can't, they'll say we're under lockdown, but stores can be open. Oh, they say we're under lockdown, but it's only limits on indoor dining. Oh, they say we're under lockdown, but, there's a curfew at nightclubs. Like, what do you mean there's a curfew? Like, why are nightclubs operating? At one point, they made a big show of, like, they're gonna close strip clubs, and it was just, like, mind-blowing, like, wait, what? Strip clubs were open? So, yeah, like, they were very close to completely eradicating COVID early on, but they reopened I'd say about 2 weeks too early. So then, rather than completely eradicating it, we had a bit of a lull last summer, so case counts were low, we were able to travel a little bit, but yeah. I always thought you had a good president. Yeah, this is provincial, not countrywide. So Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, we don't have a president, we have a prime minister. Our prime minister He's a sort of inoffensive kind of ineffective. He says the right things. He's slick at messaging. He doesn't do anything particularly hateful, but he's not been particularly effective at delivering anything. But what happened is that the Prime Minister, I mean, the federal government, what they did was they did a few things right. They introduced, pretty much right away, they introduced some support systems for small businesses, for like individuals who are out of work. So I've received some federal support from like my income getting cut. And they did some really slick messaging. So federally, they made the decision that rather than enforcing things top down from the federal level and saying the entire country is going to be in lockdown, or saying, you know, this is how we're going to distribute how things happen in different provinces, because it's such a large country, they made the decision to leave that up to the provinces. So they said, it's all, you know, we're taking this very seriously, blah, blah, blah. We're going to provide all of these support systems, but there wasn't a federally mandated lockdown of any kind. It was up to the provinces to decide what they do. So in some of the more remote provinces and territories, they never had any lockdown at all. They just closed their borders and haven't had any COVID cases. In the eastern provinces, a block of provinces grouped together, blocked the roads in and out, had a strict lockdown, and now have completely eradicated it. But then a bunch of other provinces, particularly some of the bigger ones, have really struggled, and Ontario is by far the province with the largest population, and right now we're in really, really, really big, not enough staff in our ICUs problems. Yeah, so it's really not great. Yeah, so like there are parts of, even in Canada, like I have some, sorry, spinnies just have corrected themselves, I think. Yep, nope, I fixed it though, right? We're back. My home internet is messed up, but I just fixed it. I think. I hope. Tell me we're back. Oh, right, of course. Sorry. We are back, but I don't have, because I corrected this by switching to a different source for my internet, but now I don't have it hooked up on my other screen. Jordan? Internet's dead. I've revived my stream by hooking up to data, but we need whatever.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
It's really annoying.
Yes, it is super annoying. News we might need booster shots. Things are not looking rosy, to be honest. We've had 2 hard ones and 1 soft one that did sweet fuck all. We've had 3 or 4 soft lockdowns, but no hard lockdowns. Like that's the reality is, compared to Italy, compared to Portugal, compared to China and New Zealand and Australia, and even certain jurisdictions in the US, we haven't had a single yeah, I don't think any of us stopped working. Like, I was still working. My husband has been working from home since the middle of last March. So yeah, we never had, like, I don't think anyone really stopped working. We've had school closures, but generally they haven't been mandated, for the most part, by like a lot of kids were actually studying remotely this term, but up until recently the schools were open through the whole year until this past week. And then they got a late March break. There has been possible remote, but isn't really good. My job is a flaming hellscape. I end up yelling a lot and interfering with heads up works calls. Yeah. I mean, anyone who has been working from home the entire time. So my husband's been working from home since March of last year. I've been working from home. I mean, to be honest, I still have access to my studio. But I've only gone in like 4 times over the past year. I'm mostly working from home. My siblings, my sister is a public health nurse, but she's doing contact tracing from home. My brother-in-law is in marketing. He's working from home. Most of my friends who are like engineers or accountants or whatever, they're all working from home. Yeah, I mean, I lost some work. Like, so there's that too, where, very few people were paid to stay home and do nothing. Like, there were like I know 1 or 2 people who got a short amount of that. But the majority of people, if we got sent home, I mean, I had a large illustration contract that just sort of, was in the early stages of negotiations in March of last year and just fell through. Who knows if it'll revive. So, there's cases where I don't have work. Certainly I can't teach classes. I had classes canceled. People have lost income, but that's not the same as being sent home to like chill. You don't have an income then. And luckily our federal government has at least some aid programs, but I mean, keep in mind what those aid programs actually look like, right? They're $2,000 a month, Canadian dollars, so that's like $1,500 a month, 1,600 American, and that's before taxes, so they are still taxed. That's provided. That's a flat rate, because they couldn't manage like a regular social insurance. So people are getting that, but like even if you lost a very high paying job, you still get, less than minimum wage. It's not a real winner of a, yeah. Yeah, so construction and warehouse workers in Canada mostly were still working. Like even during our lockdowns, construction was considered essential. So this is the first lockdown where they're saying non-essential construction. And actually trying to define that, because in the past they said, well, any construction that's for infrastructure or for housing or for, like, they basically listed every possible kind of construction and said all of these kinds of construction are essential, which meant construction workers were still going to job sites. People in warehouses absolutely still going to work. So like that hasn't really changed. They've tried in some cases to try to like manage capacity so that there's fewer people in a warehouse at a time. But then again, like either that means that people are getting really shit hours where they used to get daytime shifts and now they're working in the middle of the night, or in some cases it means that people have lost jobs. It's not like people are being paid to stay home from a warehouse job. I bet Canada's tracing system didn't cost trillions. No. Our government paid about 80% of people's wages. Yeah, we're not even close. Like, I'm very grateful for the support that I got. And in my case, it actually worked out really great because it's a flat amount, but I'm an artist. It's not like I was earning a huge amount before, but if you lost 50% of your income on any given 2-week period, so sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. And the previous system, there was just a maximum where it was like, if you earned under $1,000 this period, then we'll pay $2,000. Which meant that, again, sometimes I didn't, because sometimes I didn't receive it, because sometimes there were months where, I had a couple of commissions. I was still working, I just lost several income streams. So there were a lot of months where I wasn't getting $1,000. I mean, to be honest, there's always a lot of months because I'll have $5,000 one month and then nothing for 2 months. And then, it's not, my income isn't particularly regular. I mean, we had so many people taking advantage of the government and using unemployment, blah, blah, blah. The big COVID excuse is really different down here. Well, I mean, I think the good news for you, Amber, is that, as I understand it, you are actually in Florida getting vaccines out in time. So the problem is just with variants, there's a concern that the vaccines will be less effective. So across the US, it seems like vaccines have really sped up in terms of distribution. So you don't have to worry quite as much about, you know, your case counts are going down. People are getting vaccinated. Things will hopefully get back to where you then have some kind of herd immunity. The problem in Canada was just, you know, we were doing okay for a while, but with the variants going around, people are exhausted is the real issue. It's like, you know, people were very careful when the first, you know, I guess the first lockdown didn't need to be as strict because Canadians are rule followers. And so we were pretty good about just not, just following the rules and, okay, well, I guess we'll stay home. So even though the actual guidelines weren't super strict, it was fairly effective, but people have been getting less and less patient about these restrictions that just constantly change. Yes, we are doing great. As I said, we're basically back to normal now. Yeah, that's great. Like that's really awesome. Yeah, earlier on, like last year, there was definitely some concern, I think, in Canada about like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen in the US? And it seems like now, you know, that's not so much the issue. We're really more concerned about ourselves now. Like, oh, okay, well, you've got it under control. Too bad we just messed up. I am going to step off that for a moment. Hello, Lee, just tuned in. Your work is looking great this afternoon. Thanks, Veronica. We also sent a stern message to the under 30s telling them to be more responsible and get vaccinated, which blew up in their faces because 40s, 50s aren't booked yet. Yeah, I mean, that's also not been like super helpful on the messaging front where, you know, we had our premier come out and say, oh, there's all of this vaccine reluctance and, you know, I don't understand why people aren't getting vaccinated. It's really easy to book an appointment. And like, first of all, no, it's not really easy to book an appointment. You have to go like search 7 different websites. There's not a centralized booking system. And then secondly, like, well, great, but we're still only vaccinating 55 plus. And even then, it's like, well, if you're 55 plus and you have some other health conditions or you live in a high risk area, then you can get the AstraZeneca vaccine that we got. Thank you, America. The US sent an advance on our AstraZeneca order. I mean, I don't think we really have a choice with these vaccines. Like, if you don't vaccinate, then you end up with the Canada or Brazil problem. So like, you know, under regular circumstances, I would be very concerned about, you know, some of the ways in which we're rushing it, but it's like, well, what are our options? So I will get whatever vaccine comes my way when it's available. Just tuned in. What is the food guide painting about today? Yeah, so if you look up the Canada Food Guide, it is a like guide to healthy eating that's published by the Canadian government. And so basically it's a plate of food, and on one half there's fruits and vegetables, and then the top quadrant has proteins, both plant-based and meat proteins, and then the bottom quadrant has grains like bread and pasta and rice and stuff. And so it's supposed to be a guide about, you know, healthy eating. And I am doing this as a personal project. I have to thank a local nutritionist who gave me the idea for this piece, suggested it to me, but it is primarily being done as a personal project. I'm going to be offering this I'm going to be sending this out as postcards to like art directors, etc. I'd like to do some more editorial illustration work. And so a bit distracted trying to paint and talk at the same time. And so it's, you know, I wanted a piece that's like a storytelling, has a storytelling aspect, but also has a lot of really colorful elements, has a sort of botanical or natural science focus that'll look good on a postcard to art directors. So that's what I'm working on right now. You can find what the original photograph that's published by the Canadian government looks like. This is my own version. A lot of it is very similar, but I have changed out some of the fruits and vegetables, etc., that are being presented in it. Just so that I have some of my favorite Canadian produce represented. And also so that it's personalized, so that it shows that I can paint something that's not just a straight copy. What paints am I using? Eat Your Colors posters. I'm not sure I'm familiar with Eat Your Colors posters. So I've got my Roman Small Aquarius paints. Got this little pan set in here. And so I'm just using these for this painting. So I received a bunch of paints from the company to test out. They sent me 2 batches. I also bought a few myself, but most of these were sent to me. Most of these are not things that I bought personally, paid for. They're really nice though. I really enjoy them. So I've been using these for this painting. beetroot. Yes, I considered adding some beetroot. Although I'm running out of space for the vegetables. Like there's only so many. I want to make sure that I have like a good amount of each one. So that it's clear what I'm painting here. And yes, I paint on, like I mix my colors on a plate or some kind of ceramic usually. The colors look much brighter on paper than in the pans. Well, so professional watercolors, particularly transparent colors, will tend to look brighter when they're washed out. Like they look, you know, transparent colors will look dark in the pan because they're transparent. So for example, you know, this one's fairly opaque, but right here we have a yellow. This is a nickel Azo Yellow. And it looks pretty much like bird poop in the pan, but when you swatch it out, it waters out to a really bright yellow. It just looks that way because it's transparent. Likewise, here we have Prussian blue, I believe. And again, you know, it looks almost black in the pan because it's very transparent, but when I paint it out, it's going to look bright. So that is, I mean, like the Roman Schmal Aquarius colors are lovely, but it's not, you know, that's not specific to Roman Schmal Aquarius. That's any professional brand of paint that has transparent pigments. You pick transparent pigments, they're going to behave that way. But then also, I guess there's some skill in making sure that I always have some white showing, so, you know, it's not super noticeable, but each of these different fruits has something that's either white or close to white that's still present, and all the way to the darkest colors, and trying to build that contrast. And that contrast, like having that contrast while still preserving a lot of the bright, bright colors, also makes them look brighter. It was a fruit and veggie campaign. Each poster focused on a fruit and vegetable of one color. So lovely orange poster, a yellow poster, or white poster, etc. That sounds really cool. My mom was so disappointed when I got my professional watercolor. She asked why I got sent so many black watercolors. That's hilarious. You get a lot of views from a variety of foods. Yes, I think that Eat the Rainbow campaign is pretty cool. I wasn't familiar with that, but that sounds pretty similar to what I personally try to do in my own food choices. I find a lot of like nutritional stuff pretty overwhelming in terms of like trying to figure out what's what. What am I supposed to be eating? So yeah, but I found that, yeah, okay, well, what if I just, you know, if I just stick to a variety of colorful foods in all different colors. Oddly enough, I tend to prefer to like my more opaque watercolors, but I get scared by gouache. I can't seem to figure out how to use it. So when I started out, I was very, very focused on only using transparent watercolors. Gradually, I've gotten used to some more opaque colors and can really enjoy using them in places. So for example, here, for these peach skins, I've been painting them out first in sort of bluey tone that I'm mixing from fairly opaque granulating colors. And then adding in layers of colors that have an element of an opaque granulating tone in them. Like so. So I'm gradually growing to like more opaque colors. I think I will always use a lot of transparent colors and lots of glazing, but I'm finding a place for opaque colors. I do really want to learn to work with like actually more opaque media. So this weekend I'm starting a gouache course with Justin Donaldson to learn how to paint in gouache and actually understand how to layer and mix and create tones with opaque media, which has always scared me a little. And I hope that that'll actually help me develop, when you learn something different, you bring it back to your original comfort zone and you start picking things up from different areas. So I'm hoping that that'll actually be really helpful with bringing it back to my watercolor practice. How long is the gouache course? 8 weeks, I believe. maybe I should attempt to sleep again. Whatever you need, Joy. I guess it's pretty early in the morning for you, isn't it? I'm probably only gonna go for another 15-20 minutes or so. So I'm getting to the point where I'm probably gonna need a good stretch. So yep. And anyone who, yeah, I have a content promotion channel in there, so anyone who is not a mod but would like to share their own art channels, I'm happy to see them and follow, etc. Just go into go into Discord and yeah. Sorry, did I do something wrong? No? Nobody did anything wrong? I think somebody asked you if you could share your art page, like your Instagram, sorry, social media pages. They'd like to see what kind of art you do, which would be really nice. And I would love to see that too. But unless you're a mod, you can't add stuff in my chat here. So you can go to my Discord, join me on Discord, and go post your art pages over there, and people will be able to see it. And we'll be able to follow you. Apologies? My apologies. No need to apologize. I'm so glad you're here, Amber. I'm glad I'm relaxing to hang out with. I can have trouble relaxing myself, but at least I can be relaxing to others. Although, to be honest, it's about as relaxed as I get, so. Yep. Alright. It's coming along gradually. Alright, and then let's get some more of those blueberries scattered about. One over here, one over here, and one in here. Block them out one a little. I'm realizing painting even cartoony fog is well above my pay grade. Sometimes stuff like that, you just need to keep trying a couple of times. Try a few different ways and find one that works for you. It's hard to, like, sometimes what you think you see is very different from, like, how you would actually express it in paint. The first half worked out so well with dry brush, and then there was just a bit too much water and I ended up with a wash. Yeah. It's tough. You have an idea and you're trying to work it out. It's just not quite there. Oh, that's a little brighter than I meant for it to be. I think I'm approaching the limit of what I can do in one sitting. Things are getting a little sloppy here. So if anyone has any final questions or comments or whatever, now I'm probably going to end this stream in a couple minutes. Enjoyed watching, but I have to go wrap up work for today and load the semi. Can't wait until next Friday. All right, see ya. Thanks for joining, Amber. And yeah, I think that's about it. Unless anyone has any questions, comments, etc., whatever, feedback. Otherwise, don't forget to join my Discord. The link is in my description, as well as, I think Joy mentioned it earlier on. Discord is absolutely free. It's just a chat platform. Happy to hang out with everyone. We have a great bunch there. People nerding out about watercolor stuff throughout the week. And yeah, otherwise, thank you, and I'll see you next week. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.